Want to go ahead and let them in? I will start setting this up.
Okay.
Well, it's hard to get your head around the idea that even more are going to die with this new strategy.
All righty, so we're letting folks in. Thank you so much
Hi,
for joining us. If you can, please mute yourself. Oh, shoot.
How do I do that, Donovan? How do I mute myself?
Upper left right hand corner of your by your face is a little blue mute button.
Oh, something's wonky with my, try it again.
Oh.
Hello.
Oh, okay, it does not look like we're gonna go live. There's some kind of hiccup with Facebook, which is fine. We'll go ahead and record and post later for folks that want to join us. All right, it's 8:02. We're just going to give folks a couple more minutes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight on this very hot topic. Let me pull up my screen. So question, Megan or Anna, can you see my screen okay? Thumbs up? Yes, okay, awesome, thank you. All right, we're about 2 minutes away. Thank you everybody for joining us. I'm just gonna go through and make sure folks are on mute if you can. If you go down to the bottom to the left-hand side, you will see a button there that says mute. So if you can, please mute yourself. We have a presentation tonight, so if you can, we've got a couple speakers. So we're going to make a presentation, and then we're going to open it up for questions. We're not going anywhere until all those questions are answered, I promise you. So if you can just wait through as we get through the presentation, you're welcome to put in the chat question, and then we'll address that, or we'll go off, and answer questions as folks have them. So please, if you can, just allow us to get through the presentation, and then we'll open it up to any questions that you have. I'm going to try one more time because we did want to share this on Facebook. Give me one more second to try and do that again. It was giving me an error message, which is the first time
If
I've
you
had
have
that.
a phone number, if you could change that phone number to a name, that would be wonderful. Otherwise, I am going to go ahead and boot you because I don't know who you are.
Yeah, so for folks that are joining us by phone, that's important for safety and security. So if you can change it or at least put in the chat so we know. Let me try one more time here. No, it's not working. Okay, that's fine. We're recording, so we'll post this on YouTube and share it as soon as we get it, the video back. Thank you, everybody. It's 8:05, so I do want to be mindful of folks' time. I want to go ahead and get started. As I said, we have a presentation. We've got a couple of speakers tonight on this topic and call to action of what we're going to be doing. If you are not speaking, if you can, please mute yourself. Admins can go in and also mute folks if you're having trouble. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lori Woodward Garcia. I'm one of the co-leaders for Broward for Progress. So thank you. This was a pop-up event happening around the country tomorrow, but we decided to kind of bring a little light to this situation in Florida and then give people actions to take tomorrow during the day of action. I am joined today by Megan. Megan, raise your hand. Megan's in Palm Beach, and she's been doing amazing activist work on this issue. She can go ahead and introduce herself, let folks know who she is, please.
Hi, I'm Megan. I am a mom of 3 girls. I'm a lifelong Palm Beach County resident, and I'm also a teacher. So I've been very involved in this conversation around reopening schools. I also was one of the people, along with Nina, who's on the call with us today, who was pushing for the mandatory masking in Palm Beach County. And we were really thankful to get that mandatory masking in place. And now we've been working on trying to get our community safe enough to be able to reopen schools in a way that will keep all the kids and all the teachers and staff safe. So thank you guys so much for joining us tonight, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. Megan and I did a Facebook Live on this about a week and a half ago, I think it was. So just really things have changed because this is a changing situation, and especially now that school's going back. So we just want to address some of these issues. You saw the notice there. This is off the record. So if anybody from media is on, please note this call is off the record. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Megan or any of our co-leaders for more information on this topic. For folks that are new to Zoom, you've got your mute button there in the lower left-hand corner. Please jump on the chat. We welcome chat. Let us know where you're coming from, what your concerns are, if you have any questions. Tonight, we're going to be talking about what the heck is going on in Florida and what is tomorrow the day of action to demand safe schools. Real quick, since I'm organizing this call, I just want to take a moment and say, hey, I'm from Broward for Progress. If you don't know us, please check out browardforprogress.org. We are an activist group that also mobilizes voters. We're fighting on healthcare for all, New Green Deal, progressive issues. We're trying to bring attention to issues that many Floridians feel we have a common ground on. We don't necessarily fight on party identity, we fight on issues. So please join us. We have a weekly meeting and other events going on. And you're welcome to follow us on social media. All right, so let's get right into it. The DeSantis spin. I'm going to play a video in a second, just a short synopsis of where DeSantis is on this issue. But basically, the testing numbers have gone down significantly, and we're going to show you that. They're hiding information, which is unacceptable. Of course, many of you may or may not know there's a lawsuit that is making its way through the courts. Doesn't seem like he's too interested in trying to resolve this because he's filed appeals and continuing to push this lawsuit. He just recently brought on a White House advisor to tout the school reopening and the ongoing lawsuit. And his catchphrase, if you will, on this is every parent in Florida should have an option. And while that's true, let me play that video for you. 1 second. Sorry, we have to wait for I tried to pull the video down. While we're waiting for that, I just want to make note of his statement that every parent in Florida should have an option. And my question to that, and I want to put out to all of you, is what are the teachers' options? What about our custodians, administrators, bus drivers? Okay, here we go. Hopefully you're going to turn up the sound for y'all. Can you see the screen with DeSantis? Yeah, yes?
No.
No. Okay, hang on. How about now?
Now we
Yes.
can.
Okay, awesome. I'm not hearing it.
Defense of his reopening of schools.
Every parent in Florida should have an option.
Joining and backing him, Trump advisor and member of the White House COVID task force, Dr. Scott Atlas.
It is incontrovertible that there is extremely low risk to children from this illness. Not only low risk, but lower risk than seasonal influenza for both hospitalization and death.
The doctor trying to calm back to school fears, saying protection efforts should be focused on the most vulnerable populations and not shutting down society.
We can't panic. There's no place for fear in public policy.
Almost every school in Florida has reopened, with about 60% of students returning, officials say. That's despite a district judge ruling the order unconstitutional last week because it doesn't guarantee safety. The mandate's still in effect, however, as the state appeals.
I think we're going in a great direction. Today is the first day where we can literally say we're fully open.
For plaintiffs, the roundtable's falling on deaf ears. The Florida Education Association saying in a statement to us, quote, what parents and educators need is clear, transparent information regarding COVID-19 in our schools. The governor talks about choice, but real choice requires complete information.
And I think that is exactly what that's exactly what we're trying to bring to light, is all the information. All right, can you see that screen? Excellent, okay. So, you know, we presented his side, and I think that's really the issue, is all information. As parents, teachers, community members, we need to make an informed decision. And his statement that every parent in Florida should have an option, again, the question is, what are the options for our teachers, our bus drivers, our our school officials, the community at large? We need to think about the bigger picture. Let me go ahead and play this for you. Now, this is an interview that was done. Oh, it's not coming across. Oh, hang on a second. Timeout. Let me pull it.
I think something that's important to point out too, Lori, is that we are willing to make a lot of personal choice sacrifices for our community health in other areas of our lives. Like, for example, we have seatbelt laws, we have speed limits, we have these other areas in our society where we have all agreed that even though I might want to go 150 miles an hour, that would be unsafe to myself and those around me. So we prohibit that. And I think that is a piece of the puzzle I think is really important for us to talk about, is that we live in a society together. And so we have a responsibility to keep each other safe and to make choices that are the best for our whole community. And while individual parents have very valid concerns, we have to think about the whole community at large and how, you know, our individual choices impact the community.
Good point. All right. Sorry, I couldn't directly link, so I had to reopen in Twitter, but this is an interview taken yesterday. If you did not see this, we did share this on social media. This is with Chris Cuomo and I forgot her name. My mind just went blank. Rebecca Jones. Thank you. Rebecca Jones was the data analyst that was fired by DeSantis, and she's gone on to create her own COVID reporting dashboard. So she was speaking to Cuomo last night about the situation in Florida, and she is developing a tracker for the schools around the country. So I think it's important. Hopefully you can all see my screen here. All right.
Yep, we got it.
Okay. All right. So this is really the crux of the issues. We're gonna spend a lot of time. This is about a 5-minute, but it's really telling of the problems that are happening in Florida. And then we have a couple more points and then call to action for y'all.
You were saying, I'm telling you, they told me to manipulate data. I'm telling you, they're not being straight about the data. Now you're going to track it yourself. Why do we need a dashboard that tracks it nationally? What will that mean for us?
Unfortunately, we've had no leadership at the federal level to embark on a mission to track cases in K through 12 districts across the whole U.S. So I noticed that there was a gap there, an information and data gap. And having the resources and the knowledge and the skill set I have, I joined up with Fanmango, who's a financial literacy nonprofit, and decided to fix it.
And how hard was it for you to do this, by the way?
Very hard. It's more work than any one person can manage by themselves. And that's why I was really lucky to find people to help me build this project, help find all the data resources that are out there and pull it all in. We're currently talking with potential contributors to add to this list of resources. So it is a lot of work.
Do you have any early indication of what's going on out there?
It's bad.
How do you know already?
Well, schools in Mississippi and Georgia, Alabama, a lot of places in the U.S. Southeast have been open since the first week of August. Governor DeSantis here in Florida issued an executive order that was overturned last week that all schools here in Florida had to open by today.
But he's litigating it, so the order stands, which is why they went back to school. I told them in the last segment, but just so they remember, you're a mom. And you've got a kid who's in Florida schools, so this isn't just a clinical interest for you. Is it true that in your home state of Florida, the governor has the schools not reporting cases?
Yes, it is. Duval County schools were ready to launch their own dashboard tracking cases in every one of their schools and across their whole district. And according to the superintendent there, the state stepped in and said, no, you need to ask us for permission before you even notify parents about cases in your school.
Okay.
But
let's say that that's a protective mechanism, that they're able to vet the data, make sure it's good data, no false panic. What happens when people ask to release the data?
They're told that DOH is working on the best route to publish this data in a way that doesn't compromise patient privacy. But all of these states that are using HIPAA as a shield to not release data about cases in schools aren't using HIPAA correctly. HIPAA is designed to protect an individual healthcare record that can be tied to a person. Mm-hmm. You cannot identify any single person by saying the number of, let's say, teachers who have tested positive across an entire school district.
Right, they're already putting out data like that about cases and who and where and how. They're just being now selective about this new category. Is it true that at some point this month, Florida actually released reports on COVID-19 cases associated with daycares, schools, and colleges, and then pulled them back?
Yes, they did. For 3 days in a row, one day after the other, they released a polished and finalized report that listed the number of cases in each one of those categories for every single county in the state.
And when called on it and asked about it, they said, no, we're taking them off. They're not finalized. What does that mean to you?
Correct. That means that I think someone was told to generate this report and upload it before all the ducks were in a row at the leadership level, and leadership didn't like what the numbers showed, so they pulled back on it and decided they're just not going to tell us anything.
What are you worried about as a mom with your kid?
That I'm not going to find out about cases in my son's school until it's too late for me pulling him out to be effective.
But all the kids are okay when they get sick. It's like 1 in a gazillion has something bad. Why doesn't that work for you?
That's not true. I've written obituaries for several of the kids who have died in Florida. I still remember their names, like Daquan Wimberly and Kimmy and Carson Lee Davis. I've written their obituaries. This is not something that kids are immune to. Over 3,000 children just in the state of Florida have been hospitalized because of this illness. This isn't just, oh, they get better. And people seem to forget children have been the single most shielded group since this started. We immediately canceled schools for the rest of the semester in March when there were only a couple of hundred cases in Florida. So what do they think starting schools when there's a baseline of 500,000 active cases is going to do?
I hope it doesn't look like the colleges. I mean, those scenes. And again, I get criticized for this. It's hard for me to blame the kids, man. You have kids there in their college age. You're telling them they can come back on campus. What do you think they're going to do? That's why leadership is about making decisions that people aren't going to find popular. And it is amazing to me, Rebecca Jones, that you are putting together the national database and we don't have it at the federal level. Thank you for staying in touch. Thank you for the work you're doing, and good luck going forward for you and your family.
I'm always happy to join you, Chris.
Now, you were in the middle of controversy last time we had you on. They were saying they had to get rid of you. You were saying, I'm telling.
Okay. So before we go into the next part of the presentation, I just want to get some thoughts from you, Megan, on that. You're more the expert than I am, but a couple things stood out to me on that. One was the pulling back of Duval schools. That was very troubling to me. The fact that they're using HIPAA as an excuse when it's bulk numbers, right? There's no personal identification was also very troubling to me. The fact that they let that data out and then they pulled it back, which gave us a window. That's sort of what we've been looking at, some of those numbers. And then 3,000 children hospitalized in Florida. And I think one of the things, I don't know if you all paid attention, but at the end, she said something very profound, and I want to point out, our children, as soon as this was a danger to our community, we shut down schools, right? We had almost no cases of children. Now we're thinking of putting them and teachers and everybody else back with over 500,000 cases from Florida. That's just insane. I'm curious what your thoughts are, Megan.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting, because something I've been thinking about also is maybe the reason why our child cases were so low was because we'd done the thing that parents want to do, which is protect their babies. And we've unfortunately seen that seems to be very true since DeSantis reopened summer camps and child sports. Cases in Florida have gone up dramatically. There's been a 191% increase in COVID cases in children in the last 6 weeks, just since mid-July. So we've seen this huge spike in cases here in Florida, in pediatric cases, and that mirrors what's happening all over the country, where when we bring children together, they're getting COVID and they're getting sick. And, you know, it was very interesting that the state started to release that data about individual, about the cases of COVID in daycares and schools. I had been calling our local health department here in Palm Beach County, and I'd been calling the state health department asking them for this information for weeks, because I had friends who were trying desperately to figure out where's the safest place for me to send my children if I have to get a daycare option. And only through social media posts would we find out, oh, there's a case in this daycare, but we haven't heard about one at this daycare. So when I reached out to the health department, they said to me, we're keeping track of it, but we won't release it publicly. And I said, that's really unfair, because parents, we have to make these choices where to send our kids, and what constitutes an outbreak as opposed to an isolated case, and all these different things. And they were just, their hands were tied, basically, is what it came down to, that our local health department have had their hands tied by the state health department, because they're not an independent organization from the health department. So for example, I'm in Palm Beach County, and my Palm Beach County Health Department is like a satellite site of the whole Florida Department of Health. So they can't make independent assessments, they can't make independent data analysis, they can't make independent decisions, because they are not just for Palm Beach County, they're just the Palm Beach County branch. So, you know, the people that work there were very apologetic, like, sorry, we want to help you, but we just can't. And then when this data came out on the COVID dashboard, everyone started kind of looking through it and seeing, oh my gosh, there's 900 cases in daycares and summer camps. And as soon as people started talking about it and the press started reporting on it, boom, it got pulled down. So I'm very thankful for Rebecca Jones, because she's been relying on individual reports from different schools, from different teachers. And that's how she's putting together her information. And then they're verifying it. But her baseline, she's got to pull it from, you know, just random people like us calling and saying, my coworker has COVID and I work at a daycare. So, you know, this grassroots style of data analysis is what we're left with. And, you know, while I'm so thankful for it, it's inadequate. it's not going to cut it in our country and in our state. So, you know, we need to be pushing for more transparency and more information.
Thank you for that. I have a question for you. So as a parent, I know that I am required before my child goes in, I have to submit her medical records. So I have to prove that she's had her vaccinations. I have to prove, you know, I'm not allowed to send her if she has the flu. I have to make sure she has the flu shots. I mean, we get emails, I put in the chat, we get emails and texts as parents if our children have lice, or if there's somebody in that classroom that has lice. So where did this sort of change that we are not going to be informed in any school in Florida that a teacher is ill or tests positive, a student, a parent of somebody? Where did that break down?
This is unprecedented. I can't come up with any other example when this information has been hidden from parents in this way at all. And I think it's extremely dangerous because parents are being asked now to make a choice. For example, while I was in the middle, I said I'm a teacher. While I was in the middle of teaching my class online today, I get a call from our principal saying, heads up, they're going to be asking if you want to return your kids to in-person school in the next few days. Now, we don't know anything about what that looks like from a parent point of view. We don't know how many kids would be in the class. All we've heard about safety mechanisms is that they're going to have to wear masks. That's it. We haven't heard any other real finalized details. So as a parent, how can I possibly make an informed decision if I don't have information about where the COVID spread is in my community, if I don't know what the safety procedures are going to be, and if I don't know even who's going to be teaching my students' class, because some teachers are going to choose not to return because they can't put their family at risk or themselves at risk in this way. So we're asking parents to make these choices without adequate information. And like I said, that's unprecedented. I can't think of a time in my lifetime, or even if I'm thinking American history, where we have withheld this much information from parents.
And to that point, as a parent also, I also want to know that, okay, if you're not going to give me that information, then tell me what you're doing to make sure that there are protocols in place. How often are the buses being cleaned? How often is the staff, where are they sitting in their lunchroom? Like how often, like where are the children? I want to know all of this. I mean, that's just crazy to think that, well, kids get sick. Well, I'm sorry, but unless Governor DeSantis is willing to go to my daughter's school with all of those kids, I have a big problem as a mom with that. Big problem. Because
the flu is a very different illness. And, unfortunately, COVID, we don't have a lot of information. It's only been around 6 months, or 7 months, but we do know that children can have very significant health impacts, even when they're asymptomatic. And in Miami, they did a bunch of research on children who had COVID, who had recovered from COVID. Some had been hospitalized, some had been asymptomatic and just tested positive because other people in their house had tested. So that's how they knew. And what they found is a significant percentage, around a third, had lung damage, lung scarring, even among kids who didn't ever have a fever, didn't ever cough, didn't show any of the signs of a COVID illness that would, for me as a teacher, flag them to say, send this kid to the nurse, right? Or if we do a temperature check before they walk in, kid doesn't have a temperature, come on in, buddy. So this is not a disease that we know a lot about, but we do know that it spreads extremely rapidly. We do know that it's mutating, and we do know that it can impact someone's entire body. They're finding brain damage, heart damage, all kinds of stuff because of the way that it works on our blood vessels and on our circulatory system. It doesn't allow our body to get a normal amount of oxygen. So our entire body relies on oxygen. And that's why we're seeing these widespread effects. And to your point, Lori, like we can't keep head lice out of our classrooms. And during flu season, we take extreme precautions. Several schools in my county were shut down for the flu last year because so many children got the flu and got sick that they shut the school down, deep cleaned it, and had everyone come back slowly. So we don't even know if those kind of precautions would work or what they are. In Palm Beach County tomorrow, there's a school board meeting, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the call. But one of the things they're going to discuss is hopefully give us some direct answers on what are the safety protocols that are going to be implemented for our staff and our students.
Yeah, and I think that just hearing all the craziness of the online learning, how our teachers weren't prepared, they didn't have a training, they were, there's so many kinks. So to think that we're going to roll out of this virtual world and back into classrooms, even if it's half or 20%, is still a crazy scenario where it could possibly in Palm Beach be within a week, right? If I'm understanding that correctly, if they go to phase 2.
Yes, and the county commissioners today in Palm Beach County had a very wild and crazy meeting. If you guys have a chance to check out the coverage, it got very feisty. But at the end of the day, the commissioners voted 4-2 to move into this very graduated phase 2. So in the commissioners' plan, the certain businesses would be allowed to begin to operate at half capacity and others could move to full capacity. Restaurants would stay at half capacity. Masking would stay in place. Then 3 to 4 weeks later, they would want to reopen the schools. So the county is asking for the schools to come after the businesses and after we've had a significant amount of time to be able to measure if there's an impact. The school district has not amended their plan. The school district's plan is to start 1 week after phase 2 begins. So we have no idea as teachers and parents what's going on in terms of when could in-person instruction start. And that's something that is very up in the air. There's also the lawsuit that was briefly mentioned where the teachers unions, that Florida Educators Association is suing the state to say that each district should have the right to decide for their own selves when it's safe to reopen in-person classes, and that DeSantis and Corcoran, who's our Secretary of Education, should not decide that unilaterally. 2 judges have agreed with the teachers union, but over the weekend, DeSantis appealed again, and now it's in the 3rd appeal. So everything is still up in the air. And right now it's just rumors swirling around about what's happening when school's going to open back up. And hopefully we'll get some real answers. But, the number one thing is that we have to keep our children safe. We have to keep our staff safe. Over the summer, when it was just administration and custodial staff at our schools in Palm Beach County, we had around 20 custodians go home with COVID-like symptoms. And I know of at least 1 head custodian at a school in Palm Beach County that died of COVID. So this, even in a very minimal bare bones scenario in school buildings, was spreading around. So this is something now that teachers have gone back into school to teach. Some of the teachers have taken that option. We don't have any data about if they are getting sick. Hopefully they're not. But all of these things are up in the air, and without clear data, it's very difficult for parents to make informed decisions.
Thank you for that. I want to talk about a couple things you pointed out there. Number one, and I should have said this at the very beginning, real clear, nobody wants to be home. We want these kids back in school. Ultimately, we want we want an economy that works. We want people working. We want a full open, but we want to be safe about it. And we want to make sure that our community, it's not just, I'm a mom, it's not just about our kids. I am deeply concerned about everybody else. I put a question on Facebook, and I'll propose this to all of you. Who trusts the other parents' children not to send their child sick? And I am telling you, out of 100 people on that post, not one person said, I trust the other parents. That's just something to think about. The other thing that I want to point out is sort of a quandary, and if you're all going to be advocating on this or making calls or tweeting, I want to point out in the different counties, we've kind of come up across something where the county says, well, it's up to the school board. And the school board goes, well, we're relying on the county. So they're both of them, right? Yeah, they're doing this, right? But they both have responsibility to make sure that our community and our children are safe. So don't let them tell you that's not ours as they do this. They each have responsibility. Every single one of them has responsibility in this. I put up on the screen, can you see the chart that you have there? Can you see that screen?
No.
No. Okay, let me make sure that I've got that.
And just to touch on one of the points that you made, I'm a teacher. I love what I do. I am so lucky. I got to loop with my class. I had the same class last year that I have this year. I would love to be in the classroom with them. Virtual instruction is a challenge, and I'm willing to do it because I love them so much and I want to keep them safe. But the number one place that all of us want to be, my kids want to be in school, I want to be in school. We all want to just be together, back in the building, having fun, learning, playing, doing all that kind of stuff. But as a teacher, you know, I have a real responsibility to keep my students safe. That's my number one. Like, I promise that when you drop your kids off in my class, you know, it's a promise that I make to you that I'm going to return them to you better, smarter, kinder, nicer, healthier, everything I can do to make them better when I give them back to you. So I can't ethically, you know, participate in an activity that would harm the students. And that's why I've been fighting so hard this summer to get our spread down. So let's take a look at this graph here that Lori just put up. My husband works in data analysis, and he helped me create this graph, and I'm happy to share how we did it with anybody who's interested. We pulled from the state database. We pulled all the COVID cases, and this is as of about a week ago. We pulled all the COVID cases for kids 0 to 18. And the daily new cases are the blue lines going up. So you can see, you know, that's kind of why they spike up and down, because, you know, one day on Sundays, the labs don't report as much data or whatever. So, but you can see that the curve goes up dramatically. And we put an arrow in here. The first arrow, it says, if you can't read it, it says DeSantis opens summer camps and children's activities. So you see the numbers stay kind of low until that point, and then they start to shoot upward, because now our children, instead of being at home with grandma or mom and dad, they are involved in summer camps and outdoor activities and sports. So we can see a big increase from that. And then all of a sudden we see the data kind of start to drop back down again. And so my husband and I were like, wonder what happened there. And we realized that was when the case data stopped being reported to the CDC directly. And instead the case data started going to the White House. So, you know, that was very interesting to notice. I don't have any proof or information that, you know, things are being underreported, but it is very significant to me to see that upward trend stops immediately as soon as the data is reported to a different agency. And then the orange line is cumulative cases over time. So that one, you can see that our cases are going up, and as of today, we're over 50,000 cases in children. This data was from last week, so we were just under 50,000, but today we're over 50,000. So you can see the cumulative cases going up over time.
That's insane. I just want to point out, this was about a week ago, but yeah, as you said, the rates have increased per this article over 23% amongst children. We're going to share all of this with you if you're on this call, so you'll get all this information. And then the previous slide there also mentioned that, you know, what we were talking about, the data being lost. I think the real significant thing, in addition to the fact that, look what happens when DeSantis opened everything up. We were almost at a point probably where we could be squashing this, and then we opened everything up during the summer, and then look at all these cases of kids getting it. The other thing is to keep in mind that the testing has gone down significantly. That is not an indicator that we're healthier. It's just an indicator that you can see here testing has gone down to about 936,000, over which it was 1.68 million in a month. So it's dropped almost in half, right? Yeah. That's crazy. It doesn't mean we're healthier. And then what we keep advocating here is, we're going to give you that link to the Johns Hopkins data, they are showing that the positivity rate in Florida right now, I just checked it today, was about 12.2% for the past week. And Florida's dashboard is showing 5.83%. And that's really what is extremely troubling to me.
Yes.
Is this disparity of information. Can you share a little bit? We talked about this in our last Facebook Live,
Absolutely.
Megan, about where there's a disparity in some of those numbers.
Yeah, so I did a deep dive on this because I checked the Johns Hopkins numbers and it really shocked me. So I started really digging into it. And what I found was that the state of Florida has changed the way we calculate our positivity. So earlier in the pandemic, we were calculating our positivity pretty much the same way Johns Hopkins, most of the other states, most of the rest of the world calculates their positivity, which is that they take the number of people that test positive for COVID and they divide it by the number of total tests for that day. So it's pretty simple. And then as we moved along in the pandemic and people were getting retested, then they were grouping people. So if you're a nurse, or a doctor, if you travel and have to, travel a lot, if you are someone who works in food service, if you're someone that's tested positively before, you'll get retested. And some of these people, especially our healthcare workers, are getting tested 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, many, many times. And so originally the state was grouping those people. Then the data analysis kind of started to change. And now the way that the state calculates it is that if you are testing again, if you're considered a retest, if you test positive for a second time, you don't count as a new case and you don't count in the positivity rate. And that to me makes sense because it's not an additional person that has COVID, it's the same person that still has it. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. But what we're doing differently now is that we're not grouping the negative tests. So if someone goes in and they get, a test and it comes out positive, then they go back and they get tested 2 or 3 more times, right? If any of those tests come back negative, they're counted as a brand new person testing negative for the first time, and they're not grouped into one individual. So Johns Hopkins is able to take the data and group it by individual. So grouping together all the people, all the tests taken by John nurse, right? And only count that as one individual. Whereas the state is only grouping the positive cases and counting each individual negative case. So if you think about how a percentage works, if it's one person testing positive out of 5, right, then that, or let's say out of 4, then that's 25%. But if you make the denominator bigger, if somehow you can come up with 5 more negative tests and now it's 1 out of 10, right, then there's only 10% positivity. So they're playing with the numbers to try to make that denominator bigger so that the positivity rate looks like it's coming down. Now, just as an aside, Johns Hopkins had our positivity rate around 19% about 2 weeks ago. So it's coming down to 12%. So Johns Hopkins is showing that our data is moving in the right direction, that we are bringing our positivity rates down when you calculate for Florida the way that we calculate for the rest of the world. So it's not all doom and gloom. Like, we're making progress here. We are actually, it appears, reducing the COVID spread in our communities, but it's not to the level that DeSantis and the health department are purporting that it is. And we're not ready yet to make these steps to move into these different phases, to move to in-person learning, because we need the positivity rates to keep coming down. But the push to get children back in school by the end of the month, it seems to have spurred this kind of funny business with the numbers here. And now you'll see the media is calling, whenever they report on the positivity rates, they've started calling it for new cases, because they're trying to differentiate between retest and new cases. But to get a clear picture of what COVID is actually doing in our community, we need to be calculating our positivity the way that Johns Hopkins is doing it, and really looking at it, because as a teacher, if a kid comes into my class and they had COVID before and they still have it, I don't want them in my class. I want them on the computer and I can teach them virtually. Even though they don't count as a new case, as a person that's going to be in a room with them for 6 to 8 hours all day long, I don't care if you had it before and you still have it, or you just have it for the first time. I just don't want the COVID, right? So as far as the positivity goes for our community, we need to keep that in mind, that, we need to look at that. And also what Lori was saying about the testing decrease. This is really, really significant. Before the Hurricane Isaias, we were testing and reporting on around 85,000 tests per day, okay? Which experts said still wasn't quite enough, but was pretty close to enough, right? To get a clear picture. Yesterday, we reported on 15,000 cases. So that's like an eighth, a seventh of what we were reporting on before. And when I spoke to the county commissioners about this, they said, oh, people just aren't showing up to the testing sites. They're not showing up. We don't quite know what to do about it. So, this is something that us as people in our community, we need to advocate for each other to get tested and to encourage everyone to get tested so that we can have accurate data to know what's going on with our community spread. And that's something I asked the county commissioners also, please, use the power that you have, that we voted for you and we picked you as our leaders. Use this to encourage people to get tested, because we need to have 85 to 95,000 tests per day statewide to have a decent picture of what's going on in our communities. If we only test 5 people and none of those 5 people have COVID, it doesn't mean COVID's gone. It means we didn't test enough. So we need to be careful and make sure that we can ramp up our testing, especially as children are getting back into schools.
Thank you for that. And I think to Governor DeSantis, if he thinks it's so safe, then be willing to say, you know what, I feel so safe. Let's go ahead and do a random test of 200,000 kids in our schools today.
Yes. And
because
I think
the other counties are going to school. Let's feel confident in that. If he has so much confidence in the health and well-being of our teachers and students, there are counties that have already opened. Let's go do random tests and see how they're doing.
And let's just ask people and say, parents, if you want to feel safe about your choice, then let's get everybody tested. Let's say go to your neighborhood, get swabbed. Now the results are coming back a lot faster. People were a few weeks ago waiting 2-3 weeks for their test results to come back. Now that's coming back a lot faster, 2-3 days. So we could actually get a clear picture pretty quickly if we even just asked everybody, go get tested, right? So I think, that's something that I'm going to advocate for in my community. And I hope you guys take that back to your communities. Just go get tested. If you want your kids back in school, if you're concerned, encourage everyone to get tested so we can get those testing numbers back up and get a clear picture of what's going on.
Thank you for that. I want to get to the questions before I do that, because I did, try and be mindful of people's time. I'm going to put up our day of action information. I'm going to put in the chat what we're doing, and also going to share here on the screen for folks, and you all get a follow-up email to this as well. But we do have you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you'll have access to a link there for our letter writing campaign. If you've not signed that, please sign that. That goes to the mayors, commissioners, and school board members of the Tri-County, Miami-Dade, Broward, and West Palm Beach, because those are the 3 counties that have not moved to level or phase 2. And that would have a significant impact. We also have a petition. And then we also have created a phone calling storm for tomorrow, and a Twitter storm as well. I'm going to go into that in a second. And we're asking, if you can, go on social media, take a photo, record a video, talk about why this issue is important to you and your family. It's important that we make noise on this. The reality is if we ignore this issue, they're gonna just push in for opening, and we're gonna have to roll with it. I don't know about you, but looking at these numbers where we have almost 200,000 Americans dead is unacceptable. And we'll probably be at 300, I'm hearing. That is unacceptable. That is not, that's not a part of life. That is just incompetence. So we need to get loud. We need to be vocal. We need to make sure folks are educated on this. Share information, talk to your officials, make sure that folks know that. For the Twitter campaign that we have. Let me share my screen here.
And just to be clear, your voices have a lot of power. And we have been asking you guys to speak out, and you have been, and we appreciate it so much. And I can tell you that it makes an impact, and that our county commissioners in Palm Beach County, they are hearing what we are saying, and the plan they created took into account a lot of our suggestions, a lot of our fears and concerns. And despite the fact that the anti-maskers were out screaming, getting kicked out of the meeting, throwing hissy fits, threatening people, our county commissioners stood strong because they knew that they had us to back them up, and that they were speaking on behalf of all of us. So, you know, our voices really, really matter. And, you know, like Lori was saying before, where everyone's pointing at the other person, we give them strength, we give them power, we give them confidence to do what's right when we tell them what we need them to do for us. And it really makes a big difference for them.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. So this campaign tomorrow, we're actually targeting the governor. All right, he's on our target list for phones and tweeting tomorrow, as well as the superintendent of the 3 schools. If you are calling from another part of the state or another part of the country, I would just submit to you to target Mitch McConnell could be somebody that you're going to target. Your state, depending on where they're at, you could be targeting your governor. You can always message us, but this was designed for Florida, but I do know we get folks from around the country. So you'll get an access to this, and we give you the instructions, and we've created very simple tweets that you can go ahead and copy and paste in and tweet. I personally like to do a lot of silly photos and different things. I attach those to kind of make my point, you know, mom screaming or something. You do whatever, you're all creative, but the suggested tweets are there. You can fiddle with it, you know, change it around if you want to speak from your family. So we've given you suggestions to tweet the governor. And then at the bottom, we've given you the information for the phone. So we have the information for Governor DeSantis, the 3 superintendents, and we've also provided a script for you to contact them as well. Just a short script. Again, this is in your voice, your words, what your concerns are. We want to make sure that tomorrow we're joining others around the country. Many organizations are doing this Demand Safe Schools action to address a couple big issues. One, the lack of support from the national, right? We haven't seen any leadership on this from the national level. And also in Florida, we want to bring attention to this numbers that DeSantis is fiddling with. So we want to educate folks. We want people to be informed, and we want to make decisions based on good information. Right now, it's very unclear. We're not clear, and we don't want to rush in, and we don't want to rush our children, our teachers, our parents into an unsafe situation. The worst thing possible is that we go back in a week or two, and then, you know, Palm Beach opens, and then Broward, and then Miami-Dade, and whatever. And 3-4 weeks out, we're back to a major shutdown. Nobody wants that. We all want to get out of this. We want out, but we want to make sure that this is done responsibly. And the reason why we tied these 3 counties together is because we're interlocked, right? We are tied to one another. Mm-hmm. People work in one county, live in another county. We are always out and about. And so maybe a rural part of Florida might be reopened right now and not so many cases, but down here, we were the epicenter of a lot of cases in Florida. We are high population, we're movement, a lot of people going around. So we just really want to make sure that our leaders are taking the time to make sure that they're understanding the numbers and challenging DeSantis and revealing the information, right? Why is it that I learned about a child in my daughter's classroom that has lice, but you're not going to tell me if anybody has COVID? Shame, shame. All right, we're going to open it up for questions. And let's see, who can help with, who's been monitoring questions?
Well, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that this information will be emailed. There were a lot of questions about that.
Okay, yep. You will all get links to our presentation, the recording. I'm going to put that up on YouTube since we couldn't share it on Facebook. So you'll have that information. And you will also have the chart that we presented, and also the link through to the data. So anything that we presented to you, you can go and look at the articles. We're not just pulling numbers out of the air there. Let me scroll through if there's any other questions.
I just want to touch on something real quick too. I don't know if you guys saw this, but DeSantis was kind of touring around the state today with a doctor who's not an epidemiologist, talking about herd immunity. So if you've noticed, at first they said kids can't get COVID, right? Then when kids started getting COVID, they said, well, it's not as bad for kids as it is for adults. And then that has been proven untrue. And now they're kind of pivoting to this idea that it's actually good that kids are getting COVID, and it's good that kids are spreading it in our community because it will somehow make us all safer. So unfortunately, with COVID, we don't know if herd immunity is even a thing for COVID because it mutates so quickly that we're finding people, they reported cases in Asia, and now we've had confirmed cases in America of people getting reinfected with COVID for a second time, and it appears to be a different strain. Obviously, all this science is still developing, so we don't know 100%, but this is not something like mumps or measles that you can have immunity to. And that's part of what scientists are working so frantically on with this vaccine, is that they want to make sure the vaccine will provide you some sort of protection. But, keep in mind that when we're talking about herd immunity, in order to get to herd immunity, I just ran the numbers for Palm Beach County. If we were going to try to get to herd immunity, which is 60 to 80% of people in the community have been exposed to COVID, and therefore, if they get exposed to it again, they won't get sick and they won't spread it. That's the idea in general. So to get to that in Palm Beach County, it would mean between 6,000 and 8,000 people died in Palm Beach County. It would mean the entire town of Palm Beach wiped out, just in Palm Beach County. So if you think about how that would impact our county to have the entire population of Palm Beach completely wiped out in a matter of months, that would be devastating, right? Like on a personal level, on an economic level, on a social level. So this idea of herd immunity is really, A, might not even work. Might not even work. And then B, will for sure kill a lot of people, including children. So, we have to reject that out of hand because it's unethical to say that, a certain amount of our population is expendable when we can take these common sense measures. We can teach virtually. It's not our favorite thing, but it's safe, right? And preserve so much life. So, I just want to throw that out for you guys.
Thank you. I saw a question here. I don't know if you have the answer since you're a teacher. Do you know if they've hired, the school districts have hired tracers?
Okay, so that's a really good question. I just saw that one too. Thank you for asking that. So what I understand at this point is that the contact tracers are all employed through the health department. And from what Dr. Alonzo, who in Palm Beach County, she's our health advisor, what she has said is that they have staffed up a lot. And now that the tests are becoming, are getting turned around so much faster, they're actually able to successfully contact trace to some extent. But that she expects to need a lot more contact tracers once folks go back into schools. So she's even looking now to staff up more and to focus on that, because she's expecting that if we go back into schools, we're going to need to do more contact tracing. So
I saw a question here. Did they get more funding? And I'm going to already assume no, because he refused to even go back and revisit the budget. Is that not correct? Did they get
I'm not sure. I know that there's CARES money that the county got to help deal with COVID. I know that the county has gotten additional funding, but from what I understand, most of that funding has gone into trying to create a more safe experience for people who are at school in terms of putting plexiglass in the front office. There is not enough money and there's not enough plexiglass to do that inside the individual classrooms. So please communicate that with the people in your circles. They do not have the ability or the desire to try to plexiglass the teacher and the students away from each other. they're not attempting it because they can't even get their hands on that materials and they don't have the funding. So there's some money, but there's not enough to do, you know, what everyone agrees would be the safest.
Yeah, proper precautions. I'm noticing the different stories to the teacher in Polk County. Heart to you. Thank you, Lindsay, for sharing that her grandmother, before they knew how to cure strep throat, she caught it as a child, and as an adult, she had a rheumatic heart. So she had heart problems in her life. So there's just so much that we're just, oh, that's kids, you know. No social, that's the question that I have, the school buses and the poor school bus drivers.
The school bus drivers are very, very concerned, obviously, because there usually are about between 90 and 100 kids per bus. And while originally the school district of Palm Beach County was saying they were going to get additional buses, they were going to socially distance on the bus, the latest news from that is we can't do it. We can't do it. We can't get the buses. We can't get the plexiglass. We can't do the socially distancing. And they're even saying we're not going to require masks on buses. So
that's just crazy. Susan here says, and I know this from visiting public schools, a lot of them don't have hot water to wash their hands.
Correct.
Or like my daughter, like my daughter says, Mom, they never have soap in the restroom. So
no. As a teacher, I always bought soap for my classroom. Always. That was something, you know, we asked for it for the parents at the beginning of the year. And then by September, it's gone. So I'm always at the Dollar Tree buying hand sanitizer and soap. And I've seen teachers concerned if I buy hand sanitizer and I bring it into my classroom trying to keep my students safe, and then there's a COVID outbreak, am I liable? Because I brought that hand sanitizer in, or I didn't bring that hand sanitizer in. So there's all these kind of, you know, questions we don't know. We don't know.
Sue with Sarasota said her superintendent stated today at a school board meeting they're going to be posting their own dashboard. That'll be curious to find out, because we heard earlier that Duval tried to do that and the governor poo-pooed that. So
and
watch
Palm
that
Beach
space.
County has that on their agenda for the school board meeting for tomorrow. And I'm gonna add this to what Lori is gonna send to you guys, a way that you can call in and make a comment at the school board meeting as well. But that's on the agenda, is to discuss setting up our own Palm Beach County dashboard. So that's something that's going to be discussed. I don't have any idea, you know, what they're going to come up with, but that's the topic for discussion.
Aurora says there's especially sketchy is a phone call going out to parents tomorrow to ask if they want their child to go back virtual or brick and mortar.
And that phone call is not binding. So if you said, you know, yes, originally, and then you are watching these numbers and you're doing some research and you're like, oh, no, you don't have to send your kid back. If you say no initially, and then the numbers are going down, and you feel safer, you can send your kid back. So the call out today was to get a gauge and to let parents know this is coming down the line, and we want to know how you're feeling right now, because different schools are going to have to make plans based on what the projected enrollment is. But it's public school, guys. If your kid shows up, we got to find a way to educate them. So just keep in mind that the classrooms are going to be limited in attendance, how many kids can fit per room. So any overflow is going to go to a cafeteria space or to a gymnasium space, or potentially I've heard hallways, right? So they're going to, and your kid's going to be still sitting with their Chromebook in the classroom, in the cafeteria, in the gym, learning from their teacher who's teaching from the computer. The person that's in the room supervising them may not be the person that's instructing them, depending on, you know, how the numbers kind of work out and how the schools decide to do it. So teachers are not going to necessarily be with their same children anymore, and children are not going to be back in school the way it was in March. It's going to be virtual learning, just physically in the school building.
This is also a little bit troubling. Polk County, let's see who wrote that. She says, thank you, Deb, for sharing that. Teachers in Polk County must still work even if they've been exposed.
Yes, and that's true with Martin County as well. And I don't know if you saw when we became essential workers, but that was why that shift was made. Basically, the only thing it did was say, if you've been exposed to COVID, but you're not coughing, or you don't have a fever, you're still required to come to work. And now the CDC has changed their guidance to say that if you don't have symptoms, even if you've been exposed, don't bother getting tested. which is extremely troubling. So, you know, that somebody else pointed out in the chat, that could be a reason why we're seeing the testing numbers drop, is because people are now not required to get tested if one of their coworkers that they've been around has COVID. So, you know, that's something that just keep in mind, guys, that, you know, if you choose to send your kid back to school, their teacher could have been exposed to COVID, then they can't tell you, right? Because now they're getting gag orders and they don't have to get tested, but they do have to keep coming to work. So none of this stuff is to keep our kids safe. None of these things we just discussed are safe. It's only to keep schools open and to keep numbers low. That's the only reason you can come up with to have those procedures in place. It's not safety.
Yeah, Mary brings up a good point. I saw that report also that DeSantis today was cutting ties with Quest because they did a data dump. She's concerned about those numbers. I'm curious too. I'm going to keep an eye on that dashboard. This is just, let's be honest. Quest is responsible, but so is DeSantis, right? I am responsible for my house. DeSantis is responsible for this state, the health and well-being of our state. And I want to go back to the comment about Polk County and the different counties. We're all interconnected. Mm-hmm. Make no mistake, a truck driver's picking up in one county, making a delivery in another. We've got produce moving across state lines. There is no way, just because you live in another county, that you should not be concerned about our state overall. The health and well-being, I promise you, of a teacher in Polk County is just as important to the livelihood and the well-being of my family in Broward County and vice versa. We have to fight for one another. We have to fight loud and clear. And I just want to share that we'll be looking at our own numbers, but we also have to make sure that other counties, we've got to speak loud and clear for them as well.
Exactly. And
I'm trying to see if there's any other questions that I might have
people
missed.
on the on Trump's task force initially in the spring, they have been speaking out to the media saying, we had this great plan for nationalized testing strategy, nationalized strategy for PPE disbursement, all this kind of stuff. And then when the Trump administration realized that COVID was impacting blue states more at the beginning of the pandemic, that the whole plan was scrapped, and that it was now each state is on their own, because they thought that it would be a good political move for them to let COVID ravage blue states, and then thinking that red states would somehow be immune. And we've seen that has not played out, right? We've seen that COVID doesn't respect state boundaries. It doesn't respect county boundaries. It's an airborne virus, so it moves, through the air. And we can't harden our own hearts and say, oh, well, only the people who don't care about their kids are going to get sick, or only the people that live in this county are going to get sick, and they're crazy. Like Lori said, we are our brother's keepers. We are our sister's keepers. And nothing about this year that we live in right now has been isolated. Every single thing that happens has reverberated all over the entire world. And this, I feel like, is a really good lesson for us, that we are not individuals. We are individuals who live in community. We're a communal species. We live in society together. We have to change our mindset from me, my, to me, us, ours, right? So like our own individual selves are important, but we have to keep the broader community needs in mind as well.
And we so want to reopen. We so want our children back in school. I'm going to close this out. There's 2 points here. Does anyone understand why the FEA dropped the disparate impact argument of the lawsuit? I'm not familiar with that part of the case, so.
I think I'm not 100% up to speed on this, Christina, but what I think that it is that it would impact certain students more than others, depending on their income level or socioeconomic status or their parents' ability to get their needs met. But I'm not 100% sure about that. I don't know why they dropped it, but they seem to mostly focus on the fact that like the home rule kind of issue of it.
Yeah, and then Lisa asked, instead of having to rely on the data from the state, can we have our own professional? And so I would refer to Johns Hopkins. That tool board or that dashboard is being used by many people around the country. So we feel pretty confident in that. And also, you know, Rebecca Jones' dashboard as well. And then just, you know, dig in and ask the deeper questions. You know, why did these cases testing drop? And, you know, we are so, there's so much attention in the world right now, but we've really got to be mindful of where we're getting our information and can we trust it. And just assuming that our governor is telling us truth is not acceptable. The reality is he's hiding information. He's not revealing all the information, and that's just very dangerous as a parent to make a choice on misinformation. So we have to, as parents, as advocates, as community members, really try and understand. I really hope that we're all wrong. I hope that these numbers are. I don't believe so. That's why we're seeing the spike. That's why you're seeing that. Obviously something's not right. We should have ended this 3 months ago. Like, it's just, it's crazy. So please, if you can, I'm going to follow up with the email. I'm going to post this meeting on the YouTube for folks if you want to share this. Tomorrow's the day of action. Pick your time, get on the phone, just spend a few minutes. I mean, between the Twitter campaign and the phone, it's probably 15, 20 minutes. But you're part of a bigger movement across the country, and we need to make noise, not just for the children, not just for the parents, but for all of our community. Our school population has an incredible impact on the economy and well-being of this nation. If we rush and we further infect our communities, we're going to shut down and then we go back, and nobody wants to do that. We just don't want that. All right.
We want to safely move forward. That's our goal, is to safely move forward, so that way we can return, you know, our children to the classrooms with each other where they belong. We can return our teachers to the classrooms where they belong. We can get our economy back on track. We can get people back to work, but we can't do that if our hospitals are overflowing. And in the state of Florida right now, we only have 16% of ICU bed capacity. In Palm Beach County, we have around 32% ICU capacity. So, you know, we are not at a place where we can afford, from a healthcare point of view, to have a huge influx of sick kids and sick adults. We are barely hanging on, you know, and if you know any healthcare workers, they're working their butts off right now, trying to keep everybody safe. So it seems like it's not that impactful when you're writing your tweets or you're sending your emails, and I can tell you that it is. And Lori and I have been out there, and Nina sat through the whole Palm Beach County School Board County Commissioners meeting today, advocating for us. And what she says as a person in the room has more impact because it comes with the wave of all of us behind her. So even though we can't be there in person, we can do these other impactful things. And even just talking to our neighbors and talking to our community members about why we won't allow our children back in school can help save that one kid, right? Save that one teacher from illness. So your voice has power.
Definitely has power.
Using it.
Definitely. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. As I said, I'll send out the email. If you have any questions or we missed anything, please just feel free to reach out to myself or Megan, and we'll follow up with you. If you want more information, check out browardforprogress.org. And for everybody out there, keep up the good fight, and let's take care of our kids and our teachers and everybody. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you. Bye. Thanks, everybody, for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.